All right, everybody. It's my honor to have Haruko and Talon Buchholz here at our nursery. Talon's been a mentor to us for years and years. Many of y'all know that we're going to continue on the Buchholz legacy now in Oregon, and we're so excited to have Talon here. And Talon's like, "Well, what do you want me to speak on?" I said, "Why not your maple introductions?" And he was like, "Yes." So I was excited. I was excited to have Talon here. I'm always more enthusiastic. If you read Talon's blog, he's not always as enthusiastic about certain plants. So you get to hear his opinions on a lot of his trees, his introductions. And we thank y'all all for coming in and hearing Talon Buchholz speak. To me, this guy is one of the legends when it comes to maples. And I've heard him speak 4 or 5 times whenever it comes to presentations, but you are in for a real treat. Talon Buchholz.
All right. Well, about a week ago, can you hear me okay? Yeah. All right, about a week ago, we were visiting friends, and they said, "Well, where are you going to travel next?" And the answer was North Carolina. And they said, "Oh." And my wife said, "North Carolina," because she's been here before. And then the lady said, "Well, what is it about North Carolina that you like?" And didn't take me an instant to answer that question, and it was the people. And all of you people, you're different here, believe me. And well, yeah, but so that to me is the reason to come to North Carolina. And what a blessing that my nursery was handed off to the MrMaple, and so I was pretty fortunate. I look older than my age. I'm 39, but I've been in business for 44 years, so figure that out. And this morning I woke up. I kind of had a backache. I wasn't feeling so well, and just ached a little bit. And I said to my wife, "Well, you don't have any Tylenol, do you?" And she said, "Actually, I do." And I go, "Oh, good. Well, I'm surprised, but good. I could use a Tylenol." And so she handed me a couple of pills, and I looked down, and they said Midol. And so I apologize if my buttons pop off or my voice gets higher or something like that. But it worked, I'll tell you. So it turns out that there's been over 100 maples that are introduced from Buchholz Nursery. That doesn't mean that I found them all or anything like that. It's many I did, but some were plants given to me by somebody else, and then we developed it. So we introduced it into commerce, but that doesn't mean I found them all. And it turns out there's over 100. I didn't realize that. A while ago, MrMaple did a top 50 of our maple introductions. They didn't even put some of my favorites in their top 50, and but because maybe they don't perform so well here. And then just 10 minutes ago, I was in a greenhouse and saw one of our introductions called Royalty. I'm not even sure it made the my 100. I kind of dismissed it when I saw it here. Oh, this is pretty nice. So since I can't talk about them all, I'll maybe skip a few pages or something like that. I did that when my children were growing up, and you read the same bedtime story over and over. I kind of like take 5 pages and go like that, and my daughter, no. Anyway, the first maple we'll start out with is Impossible. That doesn't exist. It's called Acer Purple Haze, and it doesn't exist because the world's eminent botanist from Holland, Pete J. Jong, he's the guy everybody looks to for botanical classification and all the details like that. And he said, no, you can't cross Acer Gricium with Acer pseudoplatanus, which is what this is. And But if you look at the underside of the leaf, it's purple like Acer pseudoplatanus. And so it does exist. It's impossible, but there it is. And another one that's a hybrid is between Acer gricium and the sugar maple Acer saccharum. And again, this expert says no. It's just a cultivar of one. It's not. They can't cross. I admit that looks sugar maple, but sugar maples at 5 years of age don't have the trunk like that. So is it really a cross or not? We don't know, but we pretended like they do exist and we grow them. Okay. This is Acer circinatum baby buttons, the tiniest leaf vine maple that exists. And I know here in North Carolina, they don't do so well, but they do for us. And, but just buttons is not the right word. They're tinier than that. And so it's a wimp. We like it. And it was found as a witch's broom on just a regular vine maple. So this is Sunglow, and this is another circinatum. It was given to me by a friend, and who had one of the original seedlings of 7 seedlings, a vine maple. They were just different. They were smaller than the typical. They were very colorful, and yeah, whoa. Yeah, it doesn't do so well in full sun. It burns by July, but if you have some shade, when it's happy, it's very nice. And then this person who had these maples, I got a hold of the original of the second one, and I named it Sunny Sister, a sister to Sunglow. So all of you collect maples, you know that every week your maple changes and throughout the seasons, and you know whether it starts out hot early or takes its time to get hot. They just perform differently. And so I'm still learning my own plants, you know, after I've had this for 40 years, but it's always different. So that's one of the fun parts about Japanese maples. And we include circinatum as a Japanese maple because at one time they were all kind of connected anyway. Japonicum aujutan was found by a great plantsman named Edsel Wood from Oregon, and he introduced a lot of conifers and other plants. He gave me a seedling from Aconita folium and Japonicum aconita folium, or a couple of seedlings. One grew up and grew fast, and the other was spreading. So that's the original. It's about 15 feet wide and 5 feet tall, and so its name means blue carpet, and owl in Japan means green, and yet my wife looks at me like, no, it means blue and green are sometimes used as the same color, because in her words, and I said, well, no, green is green and blue is blue. They're not the same. How could that be blue carpet? It should be green carpet. And she goes, nah, they're the same. Yeah. And, you know, she thinks red and yellow are the same because they have the same feeling to the Japanese, who look at life a lot differently than we do. So it turned out when I named that, there was a couple others that that are around in the world, one in Holland and another one from Oregon. And so I wasn't the only one. Always the japonicums have nice fall color, of course. And then another one was Giant Moon. Just the leaves are enormous and great fall color. And then one time I featured a variegated maple in a blog, and a friend of mine who lived 50 miles away out in the hills of actually Washington, but 50 miles from the nursery. And he read the blog about a variegated macrophyllum, and that was found by an Oregon nursery. And as he was driving, and he never noticed that they could be variegated. And as he was driving home, he saw a variegated branch on a big Oregon maple, the macrophyllum. And he said, and he'd driven that road 1,000 times before, and he wouldn't have noticed it if the blog hadn't said there was going to be, that it exists, there's a variegated form of it. So he found that, brought me a branch, we propagated it, and there it is. The name is his nickname of his wife, who's Dutch, and so it's a Dutch name, and that's the story of that one. Now we get into Mocha Rose. That was found as a seedling from just seedlings I purchased, and you couldn't miss it when it started to leaf out in the spring. All the others were green, and this one was kind of a rose color, and so I had that thing for about 10 or 12 years. It had no name. I had it in the garden, and a friend came over, and I was explaining. She really didn't know anything about maples. Her husband knew a little bit more. He collected them. And she said, you don't have a name on that. And I explained, well, it comes out pink, and then it changes to kind of a chocolate color, not a brown burnt color, but a mocha color. And she said, well, how about Mocha Rose? And I thought, good. After she left, I hurried and got a label and put it in front of the tree, Mocha Rose. And really, it should be called Rose Mocha. That doesn't sound as good, but Rose Mocha, because it starts out the rose color and then changes to the brown color. That's the shrimp pink color that you see. And the original tree is planted about, I don't know, 30, 40, 50 feet away from the loading dock. So we get truck drivers come in who know nothing about plants. They don't care about plants. But we've had a number of truck drivers jump out of their truck, out of their cab, and they go, what the hell is that thing? And I said, well, it's a maple. And, oh, I've never seen anything like that. Well, of course you haven't. And I haven't either. So, and suddenly they became maple enthusiasts, you know. They didn't care about any plant at all before. And the first time it produced seed, which is not like your palmatum seed where they come in pairs, they produce these panicles. So each one of these flowers will develop a seed. And we've harvested some seed, but they kind of come out like the mother plant, but so far nothing any significantly different. Okay, Amber Ghost, a lot of people know that and like it. And for us, I think it's the best grower of all the ghosts. It's with the best upright, branching, strong. So it's a favorite as far as in the maple industry. It's one that that people just, the growers love it. And well, when you come here, you see lots of variegated maples, and but this was kind of one of the first to come out kind of like this. And it was called Amber Ghost because it had an amber color for 1 week, maybe, and then it changes. So to give these things names, you're just kind of guessing. But we always have this practice that you don't propagate a maple until you give it a final name. So it may or may not be any good. You don't know. And I always say the market will decide. That's not for me to say. I dismiss certain maples, and then I see them later, and I go, I like that a lot. And again, one that I didn't think too much of, didn't even put in the program, looked great when I saw it here. This is the original blonde beauty. And so what we do, we don't, people think I cross maples, I produce hybrids. I don't do any of that. I let the mother tree, if I like the mother tree, the offspring are very often interesting. Sometimes my wife has 2 daughters. They're not identical to her at all. Their personalities might be like her, or God forbid, like me. But they're a little bit different. Even though the mother is something that you like, you could have 100 different sisters that arise from seed. So I don't intentionally cross anything. In our gardens, we don't have to. We just go out and collect seed, and you look at it, and maybe 1 out of 1,000 strikes you as being interesting. And so you set that aside and you watch it. But if you ever think you're going to propagate it, my advice is you give it a name. You don't wait for 10, 20 years and give it code names or numbers, because that just confuses people later. You have the final name. There's so many people that come by, you want to give them a maple, or you start to sell them and things like that. You can't wait for names. You have to have the name in place. A lot of this is coming in alphabetical order, not necessarily in chronological order of when they were selected or anything like that. And so probably one of the strangest, wildest maples we've ever come up with was an Amber Ghost seedling. So seedling from Amber Ghost, and then it gets its name. And it has sister seedlings with other names maybe. And the most popular one, or the craziest one that's generated incredible interest, is Bloody Talons. Okay. All right. Now this is its spring color, which is very unusual green, kind of I don't know what you call it, a pea green or gray green or something. And but in the autumn, it truly does look like bloody talons. So the problem with it is that it's so slow that the original seedling is probably 15 years old, and it's maybe 2 by 2. And grafts that come off of it, I know MrMaple released some a month or so ago, and they charged a fortune, and they all sold in 2 minutes. So I can't argue with that. But it is so slow. Even the grafts from the original, which is incredibly slow, even though they have borrowed rootstock, and that should make them more vigorous, they're very slow. So if you find, it's not going to be, you're not going to find these in the garden centers. They just can't bother with something so slow. But for maple collectors, they don't mind that. Well, another one that I like, and maybe a lot of you know Purple Ghost. Well, it produces interesting seedlings too. And one I think is better than Purple Ghost is Celebration. Just different, a little bit more pink, not quite that dark purple, but the veins, which are generally, this type of a leaf is called reticulation. I don't know why it gets that name, but reticulation, and to me, it's one of the best commercial maples we grow, strong, and everybody likes it, so there you are. Okay, you go from that to one I'm almost embarrassed that we named, climate change. And I can't say I really like it. It's different. It forms a bush, and it's got contorted leaves, and and these days everybody blames everything on climate change. It was global warming, and then find out things weren't really warming. So, okay, now it's climate change. And so we call it climate change just as a kind of as a joke. Something's wrong with it. So climate change. Dark night. See, most of my ghosts were from 30 years ago or 20 years ago, I forget. And people ask me, well, is there going to be more ghosts? And my answer was, no more ghosts. We're post-ghost. But then something compelled me to call another one Ghost. So that was Dark, or rather Dark Night. And so it's a Purple Ghost seedling. And the glossy light on it kind of throws it off. But it's really a deep red, so it's nice for that. Then Diva was short-lived in its beauty. Those leaves and the color kind of all evolved to green by about the end of June, and you don't see that. And since it's kind of like ephemeral, it's here today and gone tomorrow as far as the color. This kind of reminds me of a diva, a high maintenance person that thinks they're really special or something. So it's a diva for a while, then it turns into an old hag later. Oh, okay, here comes. There's an old guy there with the largest fairy hair in the world. And that was the first maple I ever selected, was fairy hair. It's kind of interesting. It was a seedling from the old variety that's been around for 100 years with the Latin name Scolopendrifolium, which takes me forever to write on a label. And but fairy hair doesn't produce the vigorous growth that a lot of the other linear lobum maples do. It stays that way. And that's not the original tree. The original tree is in New Jersey. A maple collector was out, and he couldn't live without it. He just thought it was great, and I kind of liked the guy. He was a professional hockey player. Now, picture a professional hockey player collecting maples. Well, everybody gets bit by the bug, right? And they catch what we call maple fever. And you can't have just one. It keeps going and going. And so he has the original, which probably comes up to my belt buckle there. And it was growing sideways. And he liked the trunk shape. And but when you graft, I'll just confess, a wimp onto vigorous rootstock, it pushes it more. So very often the first grafts will be larger growing than the original on all these dwarfs. So that's spring growth, maybe in the shade, more sun. I love the red. It's not so much the leaves, it's the sheath that the leaves come out of, come out red. but in the autumn, it gets spectacular red fall color. And speaking of fall color, this is a festival. And I watched this as a seedling for a number of years, and it was nothing special in the summer, but every fall it outshone everything. I had a greenhouse full of 300 or so named varieties or seedlings that some were named. And but I was always going to that festival and for its fall color. Festival comes from Latin festivus, and for feast. To me, it's a party time vibe, a feast for the eyes. So festival. First Ghost was the very first of the Ghost series, and I never named that series. I never came up with a Ghost series that showed up in a newspaper article because I had a number of ghosts. So Ghost series, and but the first one originated as a witch's broom mutation on a Beni Shigetatsusawa, another reticulated maple that's been around for a while, but it's fallen out of favor, partly due to the ghosts. It's an improvement, or the ghosts are an improvement on what used to be considered, oh, that's the ultimate in maples. All the maples I'm showing now, 50 years from now, they'll go, oh yeah, that old First Ghost. Now we have something else. So get used to that. If you're hooked onto these and live long enough, there'll be improvements or things more interesting down the road. But First Ghost originated, I saw it, I was walking up our road where we had some stock plants one evening just before dark, and I could see something hovering over a maple. It wasn't quite dark, but I could see a little bit, and it's just something like I thought somebody put a plastic bag on a tree and left it there, or their T-shirt left it there, something like that. And as I walked up closer, I realized it was a mutation of 2 or 3 years old on top of a tree, and I never noticed it before. So I called it Ghost. And so, but when the other ghosts came along, the Ghost series, and before I sold any as Ghost, then I decided I better, I have First Ghost and Purple Ghost and what of that. So I had to give it a different name than Ghost. So it became First Ghost. You see all the seed, you collect that, you're going to come up with who knows what. And surprisingly, in Oregon, that'll grow out in full sun. It likes afternoon shade just like I do, but it holds up fairly well. And you'll see this as our logo. And what I find interesting about this photo is this leaf is not normal, but it's the whole thing's mutants, freaks. These aren't normal maples, and so I love these leaves more than I do this. But that came off of a twig that produced these. That shows you how unstable sometimes they are, and which is good if you're looking for new things. So it became our logo, that leaf on our website, and you'll see it on MrMaple hats. Or rather, Buchholz nursery hats. Now, this is Fred's Wild Dream. And what we have when we produce all these maples from seed, we get things that kind of don't attract, or they don't attract me so much. Well, I've already seen that before. We already have something like that. So you kind of dismiss a lot of things. And then there was a couple of guys that were out, and typically we produce these seedlings, we sell them for half price, because what are we going to do with them? We can't be keeping and watching thousands of maples, so we sell them. We have a program we call Rising Stars, where we say, why are we having all the fun? Why don't you buy these at half price? And then garden centers, they have customers probably like you that want to know exactly what the maple is. They don't want any maybes. They want to know what they're getting. But a lot of customers for maples just happen to show up in spring. They don't know that much about them maybe. And, but they see something they like and they'll buy it. And especially if it's half price. Well, anyway, these guys wanted to buy that one. And they're friends, and I'm looking at them and looking at the tree, and I go, okay, but you know what? How about you wait? Let me propagate it first. So their enthusiasm for it kind of made me wake up and say, yeah, what's my problem? I really like this thing, fall color. And so I said, well, I'm not going to sell it to you, but I'll give it to you. Just let me propagate it first, which we did. And one of the guys is named Fred, so it became Fred's Wild Dream. Frosted Purple was a seedling from Purple Ghost, so it's similar in some ways, but the speckled color is just a little bit different. And you might think, oh, well, you get carried away with all of these different, they're kind of the same. My head's swimming with all these varieties and all the names. I agree, mine too. And but sometimes they're just a little different. And I always look at them, they're like sisters, you know, they're kind of the same, but they're not. And personality-wise, they can be very different. But this one was different. So that became Frosted Purple. Probably one of our most commercial maples, which was named the Maple of the Year 5 years ago, was Geisha Gone Wild. It originated on a plant that came from New Zealand called geisha. And geisha is a wimp. You might find it at MrMaple for sale. It's not very durable in Oregon anyway, and but it threw a reversion that became actually a stronger plant than the original, and it grows in full sun in Oregon. Interesting. I always like to cry and brag about how hot we got 3 years ago in Oregon with no humidity, thank God, but no humidity, and it was 116 degrees at the nursery. And Geisha Gone Wild said, whatever, I'm fine. They had plenty of water, but growing in full sun. And then in the afternoon, what's nice is it kind of glows with the backlight. So I go out where we used to live, I go out on the deck, and I had 3 rows out in the field, I don't know, quarter of a mile away. And all the other maples out there were just kind of like looking nice, but Geisha Gone Wild just throbbed with color. Whoa, whoa, whoa. So we don't know what we have here. It's never been propagated yet, but we're prepared to do it. And well, because of the apparent weeping or spreading habit. So finally, there's a ghost. So I'm not post ghost apparently, because here's another one. And I don't think its color's quite as interesting to me. Somebody else might like it, but it's the unique part is how it grows. So Ghost Cascade, not available yet. The originals, we hope to graft it this summer and get it in production. Maybe 3 or 4 years from now, you come back to the open house and you'll have to have it. Maybe not. We don't know what it's really going to amount to. Well, this one does amount to something. That's Golden Falls. And a lot of you know of the weeping maple ryusei. It just droops, hangs down, green leaves. We collected seed from ryusei, and 2 of them came out with yellow foliage. We didn't know which one would be better, which one do we want, so we grew and propagated both. And there's one of our taller trees, and that's Patrick Franklin with the Bartlett Arboretum, and who bought Flora Farm, the spillover to Buchholz Nursery Farm, which was 5 miles away. And I got to choose a tree because the Queen of England, who was alive at the time, wanted a million trees to be planted. That was her legacy she wanted. So we call it it was the Queen's Green Canopy. And the man on the left there to my right is Grant Richards. And he's the head forester, the head whatever, a lot of things, to now King Charles of Britain. And so he came out and saw the tree. That's a plaque. The Queen's Green Canopy, the Platinum Jubilee. Platinum, what's that? She was 70 years on the throne, I guess, and I forget. But so that's that. I'm kind of honored that, and Mr. Richards said that this is the furthest of the Queen's trees away from England, and so the hospitals and schools and parks and everything throughout England were planting these trees, and yet one shows up thousands of miles away at Flora Farm, the spillover of Buchholz Nursery. So we were very honored to have that opportunity. And there it is, starts out in spring with a delicious orange color. And but then at this time of year outside, it's more of a yellow-green color. Well, there was another one, a sister seedling, that we called Yellow Cascade. And same weeping habit. The parent was ryusei, and but leaves are a little larger, but it's a little more dwarf, and it doesn't produce that orange like Golden Falls does. I don't know, maybe Golden Falls should have been named Orange Falls, but it's already done now. And here's a good example of the two. These are the original seedlings, Yellow Cascade on the right, Golden Falls on the left. And how old are these? I don't know, 12, 10, 12, maybe 15 years old now. But we've produced a few thousand of them already. If you don't have one yet, you need to go get one today. Okay, Grandma Ghost. You might wonder, well, what's with the Grandma Ghost? So why do you come up with these names? First Ghost, Grandma Ghost, Amber Ghost, and so on. I don't know. You decide you want to propagate something. You just you come up with a name. And so the Grandma Ghost is one of, I guess, 10 or 11 ghosts now. And so sometimes the color's descriptive, sometimes not. I mean, Uncle Ghost, you might see that later. I don't know if I included it, but Uncle Ghost, Grandma Ghost, these are just names that came to me. So that's early spring before the leaves. And then beautiful fall color. Now, maple I like more than the rest of the world does, apparently, because sales aren't too hot for me. But green tea, And to me, it reminds me of the old cultivar, which is a very good one, called Osaka Suki. It has the same green leaf color, except green tea's a little lighter, and it has incredible fall color. But what I like about is the spring growth with these veins. To me, that's the best part of it. So this is what the leaf will look like in the summer. And you see some new growth coming out. It's that color I like. And then fall color is blazing red, just like Osaka Suki. When I first started, a few companies that sold maples would maybe have 5 varieties. They'd have a red lace leaf, they'd have a red upright, they'd have butterfly, which has been surpassed by many others. They had like 5 in a group of 5. And Osaka Suki was always on that list of 5. It's been around for many years, 100 maybe, developed in Japan. But I think green tea is an improvement over Osaka Suki. But then it's my maple, that's why I get to say that. Okay. Green Twinkle. I don't know. That's tiny leaves, finely cut. To me, it's just a pretty little thing. It's a bush. And I think orange fall color in Oregon. But very, very tiny leaves, very delicate looking. But it's a tough maple. It does well. And I think that's one I don't know the origin of. And Hitode, that's the early summer color. It develops some red also. And Hitode is Japanese for starfish because of the leaf with that kind of that cupped look. Eye candy. Well, I'm starting to see more types like that, but eye candy, its grandparent was Higaseyama, which has been in the trade for a while with maple collectors anyway. And Higaseyama, a seedling from it, was called Alpenweiss, or Mountain Light. And that was an Oregon nurseryman that found that, Baltzer's nursery. So I have a huge Alpenweiss in the garden, which is the largest one in the world, even larger than the original tree. Because remember what I said, if you graft onto a vigorous green rootstock, it shoots these things more vigorously than the original is. So that's an example of that. Later in the spring, that pink washes out to a white. So that's the original eye candy, so kind of yellow-orange fall color. So again, you have eye candy, and then its parent was Alpenweiss, and that parent was Higaseyama, so that's the grandchild. We have seedlings coming on, so who knows how much further this lineage will go. Illyrian, that's very colorful. And that was when you graft maples, you collect all these rootstock seedlings, and every once in a while you find something a little different. And this is, and I see a number of people were paying some good money to get a hold of this. I'll give it afternoon shade because the whiter and more colorful it is, the more likely it is to burn. But what's special to me is we had an employee 25 years ago whose name was Illyrian, a Hispanic kid, the happiest kid I ever met, loved working, loved people, became friends with us, and just a great kid. Well, he showed up after work holding this seedling with the variegation, and he said, you said, if we find something different, set it aside and watch. Okay. And so I did. And and he gave it to me. And I said, well, all right, we'll watch this for a while. He was just working there in the summer. He was going to go off to college. And I said, if it amounts to anything, we'll name it after you. And he laughed. He thought that was funny. But he was surprised that I did it. And so he came back to visit us maybe 15 years later. And I said, I have a maple I want to show you. And he remembered the incident. And when he saw it, he was just, he couldn't believe it. And so Larry, there he is when he's 40. He started out as a little boy, skinny little boy. Apparently, the one half untucked shirt is a new style I don't know about. But he got that maple, so I gave him that to take and brag about it. Oh, Japanese princess. That's a dwarf whose parent is Mikawa Yatsubusa. You'll see a greenhouse here full of a couple hundred of them, and great maple. But what we do is we produce seedlings. We germinate seedlings from Mikawa Yatsubusa. We have a large tree in the garden, which people suppose is the largest in the world. I don't know. I like the story, though, of course. And it's, I don't know, almost 18 feet wide and 12 feet tall. Beautiful thing, especially in winter where you see the branches, the leaves are out of the way. But Japanese princess, that pink color eventually fades to more of a blonde color. But, it's not for everybody. It leaves out early. Got to watch out for frost. But if you want a cute little maple in the garden in a protected place, you can do no better than Japanese princess.
Hey y'all, thanks for watching the Talon Buchholz Introductions Part 1, filmed during MrMaple Memorial Day Open House. Stay tuned for Part 2. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Take care, God bless, and have a great day.